Part 36. Loss of protection. As explained in depth, Abu Talib was the Prophet's protection, both emotionally and politically. After his demise, the Prophet was exposed and the Quraysh could intensify their persecution. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrated a story which grew famous as a defining point in the struggle.
Once the Prophet was praying in front of the Kaaba when Abu Jahl was sitting with a group. A day prior, a camel had been sacrificed, so Abu Jahl challenged them. Who amongst you will go to the carcass of that camel and bring the entrails to dump on Muhammad, peace be upon him? The worst of them, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, stood up and went to the carcass and carried the entrails all the way back to the city. He waited until the Prophet was in prostration and dumped it all onto the head of the Prophet. The weight of the entrails was so heavy that the Prophet could not lift himself back up. People began to laugh so hard that some of them were falling onto their sides and others were smacking themselves out of laughter. I was standing from a distance looking, but I had no help or support due to my servant status, so I could not do anything. The Prophet remained in prostration until somebody went to notify Fatima. She was a little girl at the time, and she began crying and running towards the Prophet, lifting the entrails off him. The Prophet stood up, turned towards the Quraysh, and raised his finger up towards Allah, which silenced the Quraysh. He then began making dua against them by name, one by one. He mentioned each of them by name 3 times until the blood drained from their faces. They were Abu Jahl ibn Hisham, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, Shayba ibn Rabi'ah, Walid ibn Uqba, Umayyah ibn Halaf, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, and there was a 7th, but I forgot his name. I swear by the one who sent Muhammad, peace be upon him, with the truth, that I myself saw every one of those 7 dead in the Battle of Badr.
Consider the vulgarity. A prestigious nobleman of the Quraysh, wearing expensive clothing, volunteered himself into the wasteland to pick up entrails from a carcass and walk from the outskirts of the city all the way into the center of Mecca, all to humiliate a man of piety. Not a single bystander intervened. The only person who desperately wanted to help, Ibn Mas'ud, would have been immediately killed for defying noblemen. It was left to a teary-eyed 8-year-old girl to traumatically help her father. Nevertheless, the Prophet kept his composure and faced vulgarity with dignity and honor, turning to his Lord for support, and the support of his Lord did not fail. After Abu Talib died, Abu Lahab became chieftain of the Banu Hashim clan. Under Abu Talib's leadership, Abu Lahab was relentless in his tirades, but as the leader of the tribe, his perspective somewhat changed. The Prophet was now his subject, and Abu Lahab felt a sense of responsibility and duty. His demeanor softened and he approached the Prophet.
"O Muhammad, be as you were under Abu Talib."
In other words, you have my protection. After this change in stance, rumors spread that Abu Lahab accepted Islam. The Quraysh asked,
"Have you become a Sabian?"
Abu Lahab responded,
"No, but I am protecting my flock."
Abu Jahl and Utbah then hatched a plot to change Abu Lahab's mind. They suggested,
"Why don't you ask your nephew about the fate of your father, Abd al-Muttalib?"
Abu Lahab asked the Prophet, and he responded, "He is with his people." The Prophet's wise response was generic enough to suffice Abu Lahab without lying. However, Abu Lahab returned to Abu Jahl, who responded,
"You fool! Where are his people except in the fire of hell?"
Abu Lahab was so enraged that their plot was successful, and he revoked his protection within a week. The Prophet was once again left exposed, relying only on the protection of Allah.